Hello, I hope you're doing well. My name is Johnny, and for a little while now, God has been putting out of my heart that I should make a podcast and talk about not just Him, but also how science and logic and ultimately everything points towards Him, and more generally points towards a theistic creator of the universe. I named this channel or this podcast Look at the Evidence, and that's because I think when it comes to people in general, a lot of times they like to avoid evidence. Even when there's clear evidence of something, they would rather believe that they already believe. Now, this isn't some sort of this isn't me trying to say that everybody else does this but not Christians. I think Christians do this in some cases to the worst extent. What my point is, I want everybody to look at the evidence. I believe in God because I think the evidence points towards a theistic creator, a beginner. And that's why I'm here talking. I want to talk about that. And today, I want to talk briefly about why not believe in God. That's the title of the episode. Why not believe in God? If you really think about it, it doesn't make a lot of sense why there are so many people that don't follow the Christian principles. Because when it comes to anything, the individual person, a nation, whatever it might be, if it follows Christian principles, it usually does well. Typically does better than if it weren't. And I have some examples here. And the point I'm trying to get across is that the Bible is sort of like a map. If you live your life for long enough, what I think is that you will eventually figure out that the principles in the Bible are the best way to live. And I have a couple points here, but I could go on and on about this for days. There's so much in the Bible to talk about and how it relates to real life in making the lives of whoever follows the principles better. But here's a couple principles. The Bible talks about do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness? Or what fellowship has darkness with light? Now, in here, we're talking about marriage, right? At least there's a way to look at it that you could say it's talking about marriage. If we look at the divorce rates in the US, right, it's around 40 to 50% of marriages end in divorce. That is terrible. If you actually understand what marriage and divorce is on the level that Christians believe that it is, or if you believe what marriage is from the Christian perspective, that's a terrible, terrible thing. And I think for most people, divorce is a bad thing. It's a terrible thing. Not just for the people being divorced, but if there's possibly children involved, it's a terrible situation. But some good news on how not being unequally yoked, as this verse says, displays itself in reality, is that Christian couples meaning both of the partners are Christians, who pray together regularly have a divorce rate of less than 0.1%. It's almost zero. And it's a whole lot less than 40 to 50%, clearly. So that's one aspect of how Christian principles improve people's lives. Now, you could say that, well, sure, if somebody thinks that God's watching them, then, and they're not supposed to get divorced, they're not going to get divorced. But I'm trying to say that's the entire point. Moving on. Suicide rate in the US is at a terrible 14.3 per 100,000 people. Now, in the case of someone, just anyone who goes to a church service once or more per week, that number drops by 5-fold. That's pretty plain evidence. And I got another verse here. It says, this is Jesus speaking, "Peace I live with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." Knowing that God is with you will give you so much peace. I had a lot of anxiety personally before I gave my life to Christ, and it's completely gone. Completely. I haven't lived for very long now, but I've never experienced anything like it. Not just how my life has improved, but specifically how my terrible anxiety that I had just vanished within a couple months. So that's just my own testament, but as you can see here, a lot of people find peace from religion. So why wouldn't you want that peace? The next thing. You probably know that a lot of the world watches pornography. And I didn't know the numbers until I researched it, but it's actually a terrible 70% of men have seen it at least once, and 30 to 40% of women. And now, if you don't believe that porn is bad for you, you should read the book Your Brain on Porn by Gary Wilson. In that book, he compares it to psychedelic drugs, in the way that it rewires your brain, and in the case of porn, in a negative fashion. It rewires your brain negatively. That's really terrible. When I found out that it was 70% of men. Now, in the Bible, it's very clear that you should not watch porn. It tells you that it's a bad idea. It's super clear. I guarantee you've probably heard it before, but I will show you a verse anyway. Jesus says, "But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart." He doesn't say it blatantly, but I'm sure this can be applied to women too. So, pretty good map, just looking at those 3 points. But if you research further in, you could find more. I'm just giving you some data right right from the get-go, but I recommend that you go and research how the Bible improves lives, right? Next point, I'm just going on, for this next point, I just want to look at the perspectives of atheists and Christians. I will make another video probably talking about other religions, but for now I just want to talk about atheist, agnostic, and Christians. And the point is about the afterlife. So before I was talking about this life, now I want to talk about the afterlife. And there's really not much to talk about here because it's pretty plain and simple. And you've heard it probably time and time again, but I just want to put it like this. For an atheist or agnostic, from the perspectives of an atheist, agnostic, or a Christian, there's two places where an atheist or agnostic might end up. That's nothing, which is the atheist view, or it's hell, which is the Christian view. If you do not accept Jesus to forgive you of your sins, then you will not meet the standard that God has set for heaven, which is perfection, which we cannot do on our own. We need Jesus. That's why we need to accept him and become Christians. The next is the Christian perspective, or the Christian situation from the atheist, agnostic, Christian perspective. Either nothing happens, which is the atheist perspective, or we go to heaven and live for eternity in a better situation than ever could come up in this life. More joy, more peace, more love than we could ever experience in this life. You can see which one seems better. And I know what somebody is probably thinking is, well, sure, but that doesn't prove anything. I'm not trying to prove anything today. What I'm trying to say is your experience as a human being in existence is just better if you decide to follow Jesus. You know, a major reason that a lot of people don't decide to follow Christianity and Jesus is because they really just want things now. Or they want things the easy way, right? They want pleasure. They want short-term gratification to be disappointed later. What God is trying to tell you is he wants for you things that last, not things that are going to be gone in a moment, right? They're harder to get to. It takes more effort. It takes time. But ultimately, you have a better experience with existence. Whether that be waiting until marriage, not having sex out of marriage, or not getting angry, not lying for your own benefit. Ultimately, if you don't do those things, it will work out for good, better than what would have happened. Even though it may feel better quicker, or it may feel good quicker, it will be better if you wait and you follow those rules, right? I don't like the word rules when it comes to Christianity because it sounds like, this is what you got to do. Like, these rules are set for your benefit. I mean, with the exception of not using God's name in vain, he doesn't ask you to do a lot of things for him. Like, it's mostly for you. With that said, I don't have much else to say here, because this is just the sort of the intro video to this channel. But if you're watching, I hope that you leave a comment, tell me how I can improve, because I've never done anything like this before. And, you know, tell me what you would want to hear in the future. And I'll think about what I'm going to do also and figure this thing out, because I'm just trying to do his will, if you will. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and you'll see me next time, hopefully.